Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Had several people send me this story. It's an update on one of the worst judges ever. And I'll put a link to the description below of the video I did previously on this judge. And here's the good news. Former Judge Teresa Brennan pleads guilty to perjury. Yes, the judge could be going to jail, and I hope she does. Kayla Doherty wrote the article for the Livingston Daily, and this came out just yesterday. Former Livingston County District Judge Teresa Brennan pleaded guilty to perjury, essentially ending a 17-month court drama that included ethics charges, a criminal prosecution, and her removal from the bench in June. And that was not soon enough. The former judge was charged last December with 3 felonies: perjury, tampering with evidence, and common law offenses by the Michigan Attorney General's office. She's a judge. She should know better. She pleaded guilty to a felony count of perjury before Wayne County Circuit Court Judge Paul Cusick in a Livingston County courtroom. Because the Livingston County courts are so small and interconnected, they brought in a judge from outside to, be a neutral here. Former Judge Teresa Brennan had a plea agreement, and the Attorney General's office agreed to dismiss the remaining charges. So she is charged with 3 things. She pled guilty to 1 of them. And they also agreed to a guideline range from 0 to 6 months in jail as a minimum sentence. The perjury charge carries a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison, and sentencing is set for January 17th. Brennan also will be required to notify the Michigan Attorney Grievance Commission of her felony conviction. That could lead to sanctions on her law license, including possible disbarment. And I hope it does. This woman shouldn't be practicing law. She shouldn't be a judge. She is a disgrace to the legal profession. The Attorney General wrote, "This defendant violated the very tenets we as a society hold dear: truth, honor, and justice. She made a mockery of her oath of office and undermined the integrity of the bench. I'm confident Judge Cusick will sentence her appropriately." Nestle's office argued Brennan lied about a cell phone that was considered a marital asset during hearings in her own divorce case. And this is where it gets crazy. And they alleged that she tampered with the evidence. They also said that she committed misconduct by failing to recuse herself immediately from her own divorce case and used the delay to dispose of evidence. In her 2017 divorce deposition, Brennan told Tom Kaiser, which is her ex-husband's attorney, that she was joking when she asked her staff to research how to delete information from her phone. In court, under oath, she testified at her plea hearing, "My answer when I said that I was joking, I was not joking." Brennan and her attorneys declined to comment after the hearing. Brennan's plea comes months after the Michigan Supreme Court removed her from the bench and ordered that she pay costs, fees, and expenses incurred by the Judicial Tenure Commission's investigation of her. Lynn Helland, the Judicial Tenure Commission's examiner, previously told the justices Brennan's misconduct can be divided into 3 distinct areas: deception, abuse of power, and conflicts of interest. She never acknowledges any wrongdoing. Whenever she has to confront the possibility that she's done something wrong, her default position is to conceal, lie, he said. Helen said Brennan's continual denial of wrongdoing, despite the facts, shows her character. And it does, okay? This is somebody who simply cannot face the truth. The Judicial Tenure Commission filed a formal complaint against Brennan in June of 2018, more than a year after an alleged affair between Brennan and then Michigan State Police Sergeant Sean Furlong was uncovered through depositions in her divorce case. A retired Judge William Giovan held an evidentiary hearing in the misconduct complaint spanning 9 days in October and November 2018. Giovan concluded that Brennan was in a romantic relationship before and during the Kowalski trial. This matters. Brennan has argued the relationship was not romantic during that time and that the affair began after the trial. I've been in front of William Giovan many times, and they did a great job of appointing him to hear this because he is an extremely well-respected judge, and if he said it, I believe it, okay? So you bring in the good judges to clean up after the bad ones. In asking the Supreme Court to remove Brennan from the bench, the commission said it doesn't matter whether Brennan and Furlong were friends or lovers. The relationship required at a minimum the respondent disclose the fact of her close personal relationship to the parties in the Kowalski case so the parties could determine whether to move for disqualification, the commission wrote. Now, Kowalski was on trial for murder, I believe, and the chief witness against him was a state police trooper. That's the trooper that the judge was friends with. And she was friends with him while she was the judge overseeing the trial in which he was the chief witness. Kowalski was convicted in 2013 on murder charges. His conviction was later overturned in light of everything I just told you. Furlong was granted immunity before he gave his deposition to the AG's office in the case on November 13th, a month before Brennan was charged with the 3 felonies. He was the lead detective in the murders of Richard and Brenda Kowalski. Richard Kowalski's brother, Jerome, confessed to the murders in an interview conducted by Furlong in the days following the murders. Brennan denied defense motions to have Jerome Kowalski's confession thrown out and did not allow an expert to testify about the veracity or possibility of false confessions. Prior to that trial, the attorney for Kowalski requested that Brennan disqualify herself from the case after he received a letter from a local attorney alleging that Brennan had a relationship with 2 Michigan State Police investigators involving the case, and those would be Detectives Furlong and Chris Corriveau. Those are not necessarily affairs, they are simply social relationships. Brennan denied the motion, saying her relationships with the detectives were nothing more than friendships. Furlong said Brennan was accurate in describing their relationship when questioned in 2013. I can't put it any other way than this. We are friends. We were not in a sexual relationship before Kowalski. During Kowalski, we were not. We were friends. That was it. I can't put it any clearer than that, he said in his deposition. Phone records indicate Brennan and Furlong spoke for more than 6 hours on the phone between the time the trial began and Kowalski's sentencing. Ultimately, the Michigan Supreme Court decided Brennan acted improperly, removing her from the bench in June. The Supreme Court said she committed eight instances of misconduct, including not disclosing her relationship with Furlong. Wayne County Circuit Court Judge Timothy Kenny signed an order granting immunity to Furlong on October 21st. Assistant Attorney General William Ralston said during Furlong's deposition on November 13th, 2018, the AG's office declined to confirm or deny that Furlong was granted immunity. Jerome Kowalski was ultimately convicted by a jury and sentenced to life in prison, which is the mandatory sentence in Michigan for first-degree murder. In January, Shiawassee County Circuit Judge Matthew Stewart vacated his convictions, saying Brennan's concealment of a relationship with Furlong was gross misconduct. In his deposition, Furlong said he had texted Brennan on the first day of the Tenure Commission misconduct hearings telling her to just resign, that being a judge wasn't worth any of this. Kowalski's attorneys requested a police interrogation expert be allowed to testify at the new trial, scheduled to take place in January. Stewart will rule on the motions on December 17th, and Kowalski's trial, his new one, is set for January 2020. And so that's a quick overview of what happened. She pled guilty and be sentenced for the one violation. But there's so much strange stuff in this case, and just so you know, she's on the bench in Livingston County where she lives, and her husband files for divorce. Well, he files for divorce in the same court system that his wife is a judge in. And the case automatically gets assigned to her. Well, she can't hear her own divorce case. And so most judges have a process in place whereby something crosses their desk that they can't touch, they just immediately reassign it. She didn't immediately reassign it. And she actually appears to have sat on it for a couple of days so she could do stuff like, wipe her cell phone. And so I've mentioned before, I was in front of this judge on one case, and I spoke to other attorneys who were in front of her who had similar experiences. And she was such an incompetent weirdo that you realized that going into her courtroom was a crapshoot. Good things could happen to you, bad things could happen to you. You have no idea. And when people would call me from Livingston County and say, hey, Steve, I have a case, I would talk to them about it. And if I discovered the case would have to be filed in her courtroom, or it could wind up in her courtroom by accident somehow, I actually told them, I can't take your case. And they'd say, why not? And I go, well, you have a crazy judge out there. And they'd say, okay. And I'd say, well, it could go either way. You could get a really, really good result, or a really, really bad result, or we don't know. And that level of unpredictability should not happen. Because I, as an attorney with 28 years of experience, should be able to look at a case and roughly tell you what's going to happen. I mean, I'm not always Nostradamus on this stuff, but roughly. And you literally, I people say, Steve, if she was so bad, why didn't you go after her? Well, what she did in my case wasn't grievable, nor was it actionable. She's just an incompetent, blowhard, jackass. She shouldn't be on the bench. She dressed people down for no reason. She was unpredictable. I was in her court one day on a status conference. Literally just show up. The judge normally goes, how much time do you guys need? You want to schedule this now? Can I help you settle it? she starts quizzing me about my case, and she starts literally pulls the complaint out and is going line by line through the complaint. And at one point I go, Your Honor, I'm really sorry, but I thought this was a status conference. If I'd known this was going to be a summary disposition hearing, I would have prepared for it. And she starts yelling at me. And I'm there were other attorneys, people I know in the gallery. Later, they're going, what's wrong with her? I'm like, I don't know. But what she did to me was nothing compared to what she did to other people. And what's funny is, anytime you see something really, really bad, you wonder, is that it, or is that the tip of the iceberg? And it turns out that no, the iceberg was huge. And the tip was these things here: committing perjury, destroying evidence, mishandling cases, having a relationship with a major party in a case and not disclosing to the other side. When the other side discovers it and asks you to recuse yourself, you refuse. It actually is laughably bad. And they say that power corrupts. Someone famous said that. And absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. And judges often feel like they have absolute power. And unfortunately, some judges let it go to their heads. And I don't know what's wrong with this person. She's not competent to be a judge. I don't think she's competent to be an attorney. I'm not sure she's competent to walk among us, okay? But the good news is that they can lock her up for a little while at least. And maybe they will. I hope they do. She deserves to go to jail because she sent people to jail with little regard for the process, So that's the good news, is that the bad judge, one of the worst judges I've ever been in front of, former Judge Teresa Brennan, pleads guilty to perjury. And I'm tempted to go to her sentencing. And just so I can sit in the gallery like Nelson and go, ha ha, and laugh at her. And, the sad part is she wouldn't recognize me because I'm just one of hundreds, if not thousands of people who went in front of her and witnessed her horrible courtroom demeanor. But if I have the time off, I might go. I might invite my friends. I've got other friends who dislike her just as much as I do. So it's good news. The mills of the gods grind slow but sure. And they got her, and she's off the bench. And she won't be back on the bench. And hopefully she won't be practicing law anymore either. So there you go. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Lehto's Law.